Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Career Talks podcast. I am your host, as always, Orlando Haynes, and I'm sure you have seen the flyer for this broadcast today. In the building is the Diana YK Chan, who is an absolute crushing it, should I say, absolute trailblazer when it comes to career coaching, insight tips, and things like that, as well as I'm not sure if this is new, I believe it's new. She's been a LinkedIn learner, but now she's doing nano LinkedIn learning. So her brand, her expertise is just skyrocketing on the platform. If you're not connected to Miss Diana YK Chan, you're under some kind of metaverse rock somewhere. You need to come on over to LinkedIn and definitely connect with her. But definitely tune in, folks. Have your questions. We're going to dive in. But without belaboring the point, just quick sponsor for today's event. It is the Career Accelerated Planner, which is a planner designed by myself and my partner, Karen Turner, who is a leadership coach. We band together to create this planner for folks in the corporate space who need to track their performance, their projects, and values. This way, you're not leaving your intellectual property in the workspace. You can take those for key conversations around performance reviews, pay increases, or even if you're transitioning from career, need your resume redone, the Career Accelerator Planner allows you to document and track your performance in the corporate space. So without further ado, this young lady, you've seen her. She is the creator and founder of Marketability, a LinkedIn learning instructor. She's a certified career coach. She's out of Canada. She's crushing it. I don't know what platform she is not on, but I'm super excited to have this amazing lady part of the Career Talks podcast. And let's bring her on, Miss Diana YK Chan.
Hi, Orlando. So great to be here.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy. You just posted on your schedule and what you have for the remainder of the year. So you are in high demand, and I appreciate you gracing, my podcast with your presence. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So share a little bit more about yourself for folks who may not know as they're tuning in. Absolutely say hello to Diana, and then we'll dive in.
Absolutely. So, hi, everyone. So, my name is Diana YK Chan. The YK is the initials of my Chinese name for U and K. And I'm an expert in the area of career pivoting, personal branding, presentations, public speaking. That's my expertise. I love helping people to stand out, get hired, and earn more. I've been a business owner, coach, speaker for the last 10 years. And prior to that, I worked in the corporate world. I was a recruiter at Google Canada here, where I helped them double their office size in recruiting and hiring, recruiting for a lot of the digital sales roles. I also worked in recruiting on the agency side as well. And then prior to that, I worked in management consulting in various roles in marketing, operations, and training development. So, what has really helped me with what I do as a coach is having worked as a coach and also in the corporate world, I'm able to really help people connect the dots of what makes them stand out. How do I really differentiate? How do I really build my brand? How do I build my reputation? How do I really stand out to get more opportunities and increase their income?
Love it, love it, love it. And so, all the accolades you just mentioned, they're just a massive amount of productivity and stuff that you're putting out there. When does the book come out? Let's just get that out.
The
When
book.
does the Diana YK Chan book come out? And I do that to certain guests because I know they have tremendous amount of value to add.
Yeah.
Not to put them in the hot seat, but really just to continue to extract, wisdom from you folks. When do you think
Yeah.
you'll put out a book?
I love that question. I've been asked a couple of times this year already. So it's definitely something I'll be working
Mm,
on as a 2023 goals. I have to tell you, like, I actually wrote one back in 2014, 2013, 2014. I did write one and I held off on publishing
mm.
because that's the following year I had my son. So then I held it off and I decided to, do other things afterwards. So definitely this is going to be something on my radar here because you're not the first person to ask.
Awesome, awesome, folks. If you wanting Diana write a book, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Write a book. Hashtag write a book. So we're encouraging her to do so. But before we get started, just welcome everyone who's joining. Dahlia, I might be pronouncing that wrong, but thank you for joining. We have someone that I
Yes.
can't see the name. Says, oh, Sasa S, Crystal, Jerry. and then a LinkedIn user. I can't see the name, but thank you all, folks, for joining us this afternoon and spending your lunch. Jerry put book.
Book. I'm going to put that in the universe there. It's going to be part of my plan for 2023.
Let's leave that that cheerleading progress for her. All right, so this topic and when we were talking prior to, there's so much out there, right, on how to differentiate yourself as a candidate. Some folks may say, and it may be based on what their skill set is. If they're a resume writer, they may lead with resumes, right? If they're a LinkedIn strategist, they may say, hey, lead with LinkedIn strategy. What would you say as you formulated this topic, or your top 3 to 4 reasons on how, or not reasons, but tips on how to differentiate yourself, and then we'll unpack each one.
That's a great question. So when I think about differentiation, right, we really need to understand essentially what makes you unique and marketable. Right. So part of it is really understand what is the value that you bring, what is it that you have to offer. So getting really clear on one in terms of your superpowers, your strengths, getting really clear on your expertise, like your domain expertise of what you're really known for is important. And then really getting a good idea in terms of owning your own track record of success. Right. Part of when I think about identifying your own unique value of how to differentiate is you have to know what your area expertise is, which is thinking about your knowledge, skills, and experience. The second piece is around that track record of success, which is that accomplishments, the results, the performance. And then when you look at it as a whole, that's when you really think about, okay, what really differentiates me? What gives me a competitive edge? So as an example, so for me, when I started my business, what has really given me a competitive edge was my background in recruiting, working at Google and then at an agency recruiter and also recruiting for a top MBA school. I had that unique insights of what it takes to stand out at the top 5% in the market. And so that's really what led me to have my signature talk on how to differentiate as top talent. And that's how I started really creating my signature talk, going to universities and then really diving into like, what are the questions people are asking you? So first is really that self-awareness. If you are not aware, you got to do that exercise first in order for you to promote and market yourself effectively there.
And I think that's a great topic and a great point, because for a lot of us out there, job seekers, whoever, they can be speakers, career coaches, whoever, still don't know what their, separator is for themselves, or their personal EVP, and what they bring to the table. How would you start that process a little deeper for someone just tuning in, don't know who you are, and they're like, all I'm hearing is the candidates, there's a pool of candidates, limited jobs, or whatever the case may be. How do I begin that process, layer by layer, to unwrap, what separates me from the pack?
Yeah. So I would say one of the exercises to do is to really get feedback. Ask for feedback of what value do you bring? What did the people see in you? Like, I love actually getting my clients to do a perception survey of asking, like, what words would you use to describe me? What is my unique value? What's my communication style? What's my leadership style? From there, you're going to unpack what I call themes. You're going to see themes and patterns. And you're going to start dissecting, okay, well, what does this really mean when people are saying this? Right? What's the so what here? I have to think about what's the so what of this. So I'll give you an example. I recently worked with a client going for an interview, a very an academic interview for a VP level role and student experience. And one of the things that I unpacked that really differentiated her was, one, she is a certified psychologist. The second is that she also specialized in dealing with crisis, trauma, and grief. That was her expertise. And she was telling me how this role requires her to really deal with crisis situations or suicide situations. And because I was able to unpack that, hey, like, this is your domain, you need to be able to highlight the fact that you can be calm under pressure. You know exactly what to do when a crisis happens. And so it's part of, one, you got to understand yourself, but also understanding the type of role you're going after is, what are those responsibilities, or the situations, or the problems you need to solve? And what are those qualities that require to be successful in that job so that you can tailor it? So a big part of branding or differentiating is you got to be able to tailor those messages that is and tailoring to the needs of the hiring manager there.
Got it. So I want to step back to the feedback piece.
Hmm.
So folks who are credentialed, like you mentioned, she was a psychologist or whatever, but folks that definitely don't know still, who do they go to for that feedback? Is it peers? Is it family? For them that say, hey, you know what, Diana, I see you doing X. Based on our conversations and our relationships, you're the go-to person for me to go to talk about why.
Yeah.
Who should that audience be for folks to kind of get that feedback from?
Yeah, great question. So I would say for work setting, I think it's really good to ask people that you've worked with for quite
Mhm.
some time, like your peers, colleagues, your managers, right? That's great to ask like people across stakeholders that you work with. I think that's good. You can also ask friends as well because they may know you from a more personal level in terms of your personality, your quirks, and that's also a great way to in terms of uncovering your brand, like your uniqueness factor as well. There,
Would
yeah,
you
it
suggest
doesn't.
also like a
Mhm.
360
Yeah, you can
feedback?
definitely
Okay.
do 360s. Yeah, absolutely. So I know there's some companies offer that too, like 360 surveys. You can definitely do that there. It's very helpful. I find it, we don't want to overcomplicate it. I think
Right.
the exercise here is that you want to validate what you think of what you want to portray as your brand is also what other people are seeing in you as well.
Ah.
Are there any gaps? Is it in alignment or not? So as an example, like I'll use like, for example, I did an exercise last year when I celebrated my 10-year in business. And the consistent keyword that people would use to describe me is energetic, passionate, authentic. Like these are words that constantly popped up when I created the word cloud. And I asked myself, like, is this in alignment with who I am? If it is, then you're on the right track. Then you would say, well, how can I still continue to amplify that? Right. And this is what
Mhm.
you stand for, and this is what people perceive in you. How can I continue to amplify that? Right. So, for example, being passionate, like that's part of who I am. My communication style in my content creation or my speaking style, you're going to feel that passion and energy from me. And
Absolutely.
that's the
Love it.
consistency there. That's part of the branding there.
So for job seekers, right?
Yeah.
What are some additional key factors they did consider? Is that under the umbrella of, LinkedIn branding, resume, public speaking, which is speaking with confidence, shameless plug, which is a nano LinkedIn course by Miss Diana. So you definitely want to check that out.
Yes.
So
How
all
to
these
present.
things, exactly.
Yeah.
So all these things should be put into their toolbox, but simplify it. Like you said, let's not overthink it. Let's simplify it for the folks that say, okay, we're in this again. This market is crazy. How do I stand out?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question. So I want to take a step back. So one of the common mistakes I see job seekers make is oftentimes they'll send me a message. They're like, Diana, can you help me review my resume? Can you help me review my LinkedIn profile because I'm looking for a job? So oftentimes people just think I can just update my resume and I'll be able to get a new opportunity. Personal branding is really what I consider the foundation, meaning that you really take a step back to strategize of what you want to be known for. This is really
Mhm.
around your brand, your reputation, what makes you stand out. And once you get clear on this exercise, it is a whole exercise I do with clients, is that then you can sprinkle all the consistent messages and stories and examples on your LinkedIn profile, in your resume, in your elevator pitch. There should be some consistency there, right? So that when people see you in reviewing your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your elevator pitch, there is that consistency in order to be memorable there. So I think that's really, really key. So let's just do an example. If someone is, let's say, a digital marketing expert, right? Like they're
Mhm.
digital marketer expert. You want to then think about, okay, well, what are other relevant keywords that related to digital marketing? Could that be content marketing? Could that be what else? Like online marketing, social media marketing? What are other relevant keywords that tie into your domain expertise that you want to be able to highlight there, right? And then from there, this is what I like to think about is I like to think about like your top 3 unique selling points, like your 3
Mhm.
pillars. Like think of like a stool. Those are your domain area of expertise. From there, you want to think of proof, meaning stories. Like what are some proof that you really demonstrated this area of expertise? So this is like the stories and examples. So you want to think about the problems that you solved and then think about what were the outcome, the results from that. And that's how we really build a business case. When we talk about building a business case to an employer of why are you the ideal candidate,
Mhm.
you want to hone in on your top 3 unique selling points and you want to say it over and over and over again that they're going to remember you. And it's because you give them different stories, different examples, different aha learning moments that they're going to be like, okay, they have great experience in this and they're able to help us with this there.
So I love what you said there because I share this sometimes too. What you and correct me if I'm wrong. It sounded like you outlined using business practices and elements in our personal branding, and this is what I mean by that. Where companies have a marketing plan to target their audience. As
Yes.
job seekers, we should have a plan to target our ideal company. What are the
Yeah.
everything that you just mentioned? So when it comes to the theme, you mentioned theme earlier too, right after feedback. Highlight some of the themes that folks will, because they may not know. They hear it, but they're
Yep.
like, okay, oh, that's what it means. This is what Diana means by a theme. I'm starting to, recognize the buzzwords or keywords in that thing.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, I love that. So this is a great question. We're diving a little deeper now, right? We're really peeling the onion. When you think about, I'm really thinking of context now, like people who are job seekers who are thinking of how do I best position myself, right? There's a piece what I've been talking about from a branding of it's like your personality and your character, right? Of who you are. And then there's pieces really highlighting in terms of your expertise, which is the knowledge, skills, and experience. So getting more tangible around that, right? So that's something you really want to peel further. And then from there, what you can also then think of further is around like projects, programs, problems that you solve, like getting even more specific because that's the proof. Okay.
Mm.
And then from there, you think about performance. And this is really the tangible performance of quantify to qualify, accomplishments, results, the impact. Right. So you dig further and further. And this is something that I've learned when I was a recruiter as well is you want to avoid the fluff. The more specific you can get, the better, the more impressive it is.
Right.
Right. Instead of saying that, oh, I'm a digital marketing expert, but if you can say, well, I have whether X years experience or I have worked on these projects, it's going to give more credibility there.
So where are some key places that kind of quantifiable data, like you said, some of the wins that folks have done in corporate should be placed? Is it just LinkedIn? Is it just resumes? Should it be in their elevator pitch? Because you said consistency. So is that across the board, and they just should be singing those tunes over and over?
Yeah, it's consistency. So you do want to have it, right? You want to think about what your primary, essentially the primary messages that you want to have in your LinkedIn, your resume, your elevator pitch. So let's just use an example. If someone, let's just say, consistently ranked the top 5% of employees at the company here, you want to put essentially that you're a top performer in all your messaging. Or if you are an award-winning marketing professional, you want to highlight that consistently across. And so then you can elaborate. There are opportunities, let's say in your bio or when you talk about what does that really mean? What does that look like? Or why were you awarded for that there?
Love
Yeah.
it.
Or another example, I know a big one would be promotions. If you've had, let's say, 5 promotions in like 10 years, as an example, you want to be able to succinctly say that, like, 5 promotions in 10 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
If you want the cheat sheet, just follow Diana's page. You'll see.
Right,
She is
getting
a
really
brand. Yeah.
clear on that. I think where am I getting? Oh, the other thing to think about is think about metrics. How
Hmm.
does the employer measure performance? How do they measure success? So think of the metrics they call the KPI, key performance indicators.
Hmm.
So going back to the marketing example, is how do we measure success in marketing? Is it the fact that they've increased, let's say, market share, increased number of customer acquisitions, amount of dollars they made, whatever that is? Think about those metrics they use to measure success. And then you think about, okay, well, how have you played a role or contributed to that initiative or project that you worked on
Got it. Got it.
that
On
led
a
to that
side
success?
note,
Yeah.
on a side note, you said KPIs, and there's a book out, and I can't remember the title, but I'll send it to you when I remember. It talks about a shift in KPIs to KPRs. So the key performance results versus the indicators. So, and as I read through
Mm,
that book, it really it's for businesses, but the global brands have used it. And I just side note because it triggered the thought from looking at just what the indicators are that made it successful. Let's track the results.
yeah.
Wait, and they say that's more important. So, but to each his own. But it's a great book. It's a
I
great
like
read.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I'm hearing you say this, I was like, another way I think of KPIs, like I would reframe it to key performance impact, like the impact
Mm-hmm.
piece that you've
Going to
made.
Yep. That's
right?
good.
The bottom line impact.
Absolutely. I love it. So when it comes to, I'm gonna jump back to theme again. So with your students and folks that you coach and come across, what's in this current climate? What's the theme they're requesting or saying? Hey, Diana, again, I'm struggling to stand out in this area. Is there a common theme that you're seeing amongst job seekers right now?
Of what people struggle with?
Hmm.
I would say so a few things. One, people always struggle with in terms of understanding what makes them unique and marketable, right? What makes them stand out. So this is where really taking time to peel the onion of really understanding your own story, your own skill set experience is really important. The second is really around the confidence, right? How do
Mm,
I be confident in articulating what I bring to the table or what I have to offer? So that's a big piece in terms of mindset. So one of the things I always talk about is number one is you got to be able to recognize or identify your own value, right? You got to identify that. The second is you got to believe in your value, which is the confidence piece. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how do you get people to believe in you? And the third piece is around voicing your value, really
mm.
articulating your value of what you have to offer. So if you can really follow those steps, it's really going to help you essentially elevate your credibility and presence there. Okay, so that's another big piece. I would say the other big piece I see people struggle with when they come to me, it is around networking and relationship building.
Mm.
So also oftentimes I hear people tell me like I'm really experienced in this space, but I haven't taken the time to really build my brand or my network or build relationships. Or for those who are looking to go to another industry, they're like, I don't know anyone. I don't know where to start. That's another really big topic is around the whole networking relationship building there.
Do you think job seekers still have a misunderstanding between a personal brand and a company brand, and are just like you said, don't know how to get started? Is there still some misconception for folks that you may have come across through conversation?
I feel like people understand the importance of branding, whether it's
Hmm.
personal brand, professional brand. I think people understand that just because there's a lot of people talk about it. Where people struggle with is more, how do I execute it? How do
Right.
I really position myself for success? That's actually a big one that when I survey people is around how do I position myself for success, especially for those who are looking to make a pivot from a different industry or pivot to another type of role. How do I really position myself for success there, right? Because you're so used to this, but now I need to try to market myself differently to move into this new area. And so part of it, it's like you don't know what you don't know because
Right.
you haven't been exposed to that new space there.
So what are some of the tips that you're sharing? Because I literally just yesterday, it's funny you brought that up. I was doing a session for a mutual friend of ours. I believe you know Madeline Mann.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. So, and one of her students was asking, "Hey, I'm coming from HR, going over to communication," and she did a great job on her profile. But what are some additional tips that you can share as a starting point for
yeah.
folks to say, "Okay, to start your shift, you need to start picking out key extraction points to highlight yourself this way or brand yourself this way."
Yeah, yeah. So I would say a few things, right? Number one is we got to get clear what is it that you're really going after,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes people think they do know, but they don't really know. So it's getting really, really clear, like what is it that you're really going after and why do you really want it first? So what are you really curious about? And number two is then researching, really researching, understanding what does it take to be successful? What are the qualities that they're looking for? What kind of problems they solve? What is the work environment like? So this is where through either research, through reading online, informational interviews, that would be the key step there. Then from there, you can rebrand, reposition yourself because you have an understanding of what you want, what you bring to the table, what the employer is looking for. That's when you can also close that gap. So I'll give an example. I had a client recently who made a big shift. She went from working in the public sector as a
Hmm.
communication specialist to financial services, the banking sector, in product, a senior product strategist. On paper, when you hear this, it sounds really different, right? Public sector to the bank,
Yep.
communications to product, right? That sounds really, really different. And so obviously the client would have imposter syndrome. I'm like, am I qualified for this? Can I do this? Blah, blah, blah. So this is obviously, we've got to work on the whole communication piece. But one thing what I did, like working with her, is really peeling the onion of understanding, okay, well, why is the hiring manager interested in your experience? Because the hiring manager did encourage her to also apply. Like she met this person through networking. What do they see in you? Like think about
Hmm.
that. What do they see in you? And so as I dug further, I realized that the hiring manager really valued her background in communications and being a former journalist, reporter, because that role as a senior product strategist require her to be an effective communicator to all the different stakeholders, to be able to really create, deliver effective presentations. So she really actually valued her soft skills that she brought, not necessarily the product knowledge. Now, obviously, she wanted someone who could also manage projects and resources. She was able to still extract that. Like, she does have experience in managing, working together, and working with different stakeholders. She was able to bring that. So I really coached her to think, like, well, what is really, really important? What are the pain points? Like, the reason why the pain point of hiring is that they actually have a hard time finding someone who is really great with navigating different stakeholders, communicating effectively. So you want to hone in on this piece of, hey, like, I am a former reporter, journalist. Like, I can really think on my feet. I'm good with storytelling. I can create presentations on the spot. I can ask effective questions. Bring those things in. That's like a check, check, check. That's going to give them the confidence that you'll be successful in the role.
Sounds easy coming from someone like yourself. So I'll speak from the job seeker standpoint who are watching. Like, she does it so effortlessly, is like David had, and I'll bring up his comment again. Diana is the queen of personal branding. Her story proves that she is very aware of the same job career issues we all have. Believe in yourself is a cornerstone of her brand building. Appreciate you,
Thank you,
David.
David. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So there, you see a lot of that in there. It's surprising. Like, once you start creating content and talk about personal branding, you start to connect with those folks. Job seekers still, there's tons, right, of seekers that are outside this content creation space on LinkedIn. Let's shift a bit and talk about the importance of how content creation on LinkedIn can assist with being different
Ooh.
in your job search.
Oh, I love this. How content creation could help you with your job search. How do you really differentiate? Okay, I love this, love this, love this. So I'm a firm believer that you can leverage content creation in building your authority, your brand, and your credibility. Right? That's what it really is building that. Okay. And so the way I like to look at it is that by creating content or sharing your voice and message, you are showcasing other people of your point of view. You are also showcasing the way you communicate, what you believe, your style. You're showcasing all of that there. Okay, so content creation is a great way essentially for people to get a sample or taste of who you are, what you bring to the table. And I'm going to give you this just one example. Like last year, I had a job seeker, digital marketer expert, 10 plus years experience working at an advertising agency, managing people and completing his MBA, wanted to shift from the agency side to the corporate side there. And because he's a digital marketer and advertiser, I was like, you need to start creating content because you're telling people that you are a digital marketing expert, but you have not even one piece of content on LinkedIn for the last 3+ years. So I encouraged him to write 3 LinkedIn articles on your essentially area of expertise, whether it's a case study, best practice, common mistakes. He wrote just 3 articles. Within a few weeks, he lined up like a dozen plus interviews.
Wow.
And so what I'm trying to say here is it's a great opportunity when you think about this. Why did that happen? Is one, it showcases expertise, right, of what he knows. 2 is really gave great credibility. Like naturally, I think if a recruiter employer saw that, be like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Let's have a chat. So that makes it easier to even open a conversation and to connect with people there. Right. So I think that's really important. I feel like these days, I'm going to talk about this too. Like I'm noticing is it's easier for me to say yes to connecting with someone. Let's just say for you, even Orlando, because you've also been engaging in my content. I've got to know you through watching your content or reading, and that's how you build a relationship. And on the side, I would get emails from people inviting me to be part of their summits or the talks, but I have no idea who they are. They'll ask me to book a time with them, this long, massive email, but I have no idea who they are. No website, no anything. And it's hard for me to say yes because it's a big commit on my time. And I'm trying to do a search on the LinkedIn or website. I don't find anything. And so my point here is that with content creation, when you're active, by building your brand and credibility, For you to ask for opportunities or receive opportunities, it's easier, it's faster.
Love it.
That's really the benefit.
I love it. And I kind of coined, I wouldn't say coined the phrase, but I guess, but I called it building a presence, not a profile.
Mm-hmm.
To where you're just
Mm,
showing up constantly every day around content creation. And again, this is so interesting to me because you're familiar with Fanny Dunnigan as well. She shared Fanny Dunnigan also creates content
yeah,
tremendously
yeah,
on LinkedIn, and she shared an article that was written by one of the editors on LinkedIn about the rise of the creator employee
yeah,
and how that benefits the employer as well by them sharing their personal brand. From
yeah.
one of the questions I've received recently was around where do I start if I'm an introvert, right? And I see all this content being created. Where's my starting point? Because I'm nervous. I want to stay behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, I love that question, right? And so when you're just starting out, we got to first recognize there's going to be the fears. You're probably
Mhm.
going to have faced with the imposter syndrome, like, who am I to share my expertise or who am I to put this out there? So we got to acknowledge that it's okay. When we're starting out, you're going to feel a bit of that discomfort there.
Yep.
Okay, but when you're ready to commit to this, like, let's start baby steps, right? Let's start baby steps and think about the type of actually, let me just take a step back. Yeah, think of the type of content that you want to create, right? It could be as simple as, it's a announcement type post first, or it could be resharing someone's content. It could be sharing an article that you came across. Like, take those baby steps that is easy, right? What I'm trying to say, like, let's get your feet
Hmm.
wet with something simple first that just literally could take seconds for you to do, right? Reposting something. And then from there, once you get more comfortable, you move on to, like, okay, what else can I share? Maybe it could be just a text only post, meaning you just write out something so simple of either your story or lessons learned or a mistake that you made and what you learned from it.
Hmm.
Storytelling posts perform really well because it's authentic, it's vulnerable, it's showcasing more of you, right? So that's another great type of content that you can share. Then you can graduate and move on to what we call more like the expert sharing type post, meaning how to do something, like how to create great content, for example, or how to
Hmm.
create a great marketing campaign. You start brainstorming, okay, well, what do people usually come to me for? What are the common questions my colleagues, my friends will ask me about? And from there, you can brainstorm these topics, right, that you can write about. The way I like to think about it is I like to think about in terms of, like, what do I really want to be known for? Right?
Hmm.
If I want to be known for this, I'm going to dominate in talking about that. So for example, for me, I've become known for the pivoting expert or the personal branding expert. And so I want to talk more about that in terms of my type of content, stories, or how to advise or mistakes, so that people can see, like, okay, this is something, it's not only about passionate about it, but also there's proof that she's done it as well.
Okay.
Okay. Then, okay, I'm going to move in another step now. We talk about different
Hmm.
type of content. Is then you can think about, okay, well, how can I really showcase more of my brand through the different variation or format of content creation? So is it through text only post, design post, like a quote type of post, video post, long form post of like live streaming, for example, or podcasts? You think of those different formats that will work for you. Honestly, it is a lot to think about, but when you first start off, I would say start with text only, then move on to like the next one, which is like the image post, like a picture type of post. And then you want to get more fancy, like for me, because I am in branding, I like to create images in Canva. I move into that, or create carousel posts, right? So I have a carousel post where it's essentially a series of pages, it's like PowerPoint presentation for people to read. And then you can try out, let's say, the short form or long form content, right? And see what works for you. One thing I've learned from even other experts, is that it's good to have different forms of communication, meaning that there are some people who prefer watching videos, some
Hmm.
people just like to read. So you want to have a bit of different variation of content that will cater to different audiences' needs there.
Got it. So it's funny you say that because previously, years ago, a couple of years ago, I self-published 3 books, and I do not like to do long form text content. I'm like, I freeze up and like, hey, I'm not a writer. I prefer to just leverage the live and or do some what I call static posts where you do a picture and add a little bit of text behind it. But the main piece of that post is the picture that should grab your
Yeah.
attention and speak to you. So it's funny. I've done that, but I'm like, I can't write all that. Like I stumped. So I need help with that myself to put out that kind of content.
You know what's interesting? I'm going to share with you, Orlando. I'm more a speaker than writer myself, and because English is not my first language, so I've even growing up in university and school, I've always had a hard time writing long form essays, and so that has also impacted me in terms of even writing there. And what I've tried to do, like actually back in 2020, yeah, 2020, 2021, I decided to not necessarily follow the I guess the rules of writing, but really try to write it from my own point of view of voice, of my own voice, of how I would like to consume content as well, and having my own communication style. And I try to keep it short and simple. Like if you look at a lot of my content, is I have keep things to threes or fives, or I use formulas and acronyms, and that's part of finding your own
Hmm.
voice as well. So really just taking baby steps of like what works for you to build that confidence again. And now I'm at the stage where, because I create a lot of long form content, I repurpose a lot of that content. I get my virtual assistant to watch the video and create either carousel posts, quote posts, or making like shorter type of videos that they can reshare. And so I have a vault of hours of content now that I could easily like repurpose.
Love it. And that's what I need. I need a VA because I have 2 years of content that I have not maximized the repurpose piece there. But let me jump
Are
to.
you saving them? Are you saving them,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
content?
yeah.
Good.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah,
All
as
of it.
long as you're saving the content, I like my VA's been also looking at content I created 2, 3 years ago, and he's like,
Okay.
"These are like evergreen content that you can still use." Like he's reposted my content from 3 years ago, and repurposed
Still
it with a
relevant.
new image, and I was like, "Oh wow, this looks great."
I love
So
it.
keep all that content that you create.
I love it. Love it. Hey, Jerry, appreciate you. This is the book I was talking about earlier, Diana. So it is, yeah, Measure What Matters. It's OKRs,
Mm.
Objective Key Results. Yep. That is absolutely a phenomenal read. And they actually have short stories on their website or practical videos and stuff that they break it down. Appreciate that, Jerry. Yeah, it's a great, great book for business folks. So I want to be mindful of the time. We still got some time. Let's jump into how, again, even separating yourself, not just as a job seeker, but separating yourself. Period. I want to take this topic a little broader. So let's dive into that experience of being tapped or being chosen for LinkedIn Nano course. How was that journey? And again, this is you separating yourself, putting out the content, doing what you need to
Mhm.
do. What was that process like?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So I guess in terms of my journey of I guess increasing or doing more speaking and teaching here. So I'm a believer, like when I think about differentiation, the way I look at it is that you want to constantly be learning and growing. You
Hmm.
constantly want to improve your game, right? So you really want to think about how can I continue improve my performance, my delivery, the quality of the work, right? Like really bringing your A game. I really believe in that. So I think that's part of my mindset is how do I continue to up my game, and then from there it's like how do I continue to produce like better
Hmm.
quality, whether it's content, training, results. By doing that consistently, people are going to notice and they're going to be like, okay, this person is ready, or we want this person to come in to do these talks. So I'll use an example. Like one of the examples to tie into the LinkedIn Learning was I got invited to speak for the UN this year in
Wow.
March, and since then I've done 6 talks this year in one year.
Wow.
So that's like at one every other month. And I didn't think much of it. This was like a year ago. This was what a client asked me, like, "Hey, would you like to give back and do a talk for us, the UN, the Food and Agriculture Organization here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm happy to give back on presenting with confidence." And I really dedicated my heart and my time in creating a brand new talk on presenting with confidence just for this audience. And this was pro bono. This was a talk. I was like, I'm going to pour all my heart into this. And 300 people attended a talk. They loved it. I posted about it. I shared about it. And I felt like I was so proud of this content because it was like my own confidence formula that I came up
Hmm.
with. I was like, okay, this is going to be my new signature talk on confidence. It was about pitching yourself with confidence for International Women's Day. And so I shared about it, and I got a lot of comments. I actually had no idea that it was, I guess, a big thing. A lot of my friends and people messaging me, they're like, congrats. And what was interesting, because of that talk, it got the attention of the content manager, Elmira, who contacted me that like, hey, I've been following you for years. And I just saw your post that you did this talk for the UN. I had no idea she's been following me for years. I had no idea. Like, she's been paying attention. People are paying attention to your content. There's a lot of these silent supporters that I really like what you have to post, share. And I saw that you did this talk as well. Would you be interested in creating a course on LinkedIn Learning? And that's how it started. So I believe there's that the consistently showing up, right, and continue playing a bigger game, right, playing a bigger game that they see, okay, like now you're speaking on bigger stages there. They're like, okay, well now, like, what if we create a course on there? And I tweaked my topic to presenting with confidence instead of pitching yourself. I just tweaked it to presenting with confidence. I was still able to use the formula, but I tweaked it particularly for people in corporate who required to do presentations. So I was able to tailor that content other. And so that was the journey. I really believe it's that consistency and credibility, right? Continue to deliver great quality work. And even with that UN talk, that one really led to subsequent ones. And part of it, I know, was my brand. They talked about my energy, like always really engaging, showing up on camera. I'm just very passionate. I have a way of really getting people engaging and doing exercises, even though people are all over the world there. So it's paying attention to what people like about what you have to offer and continue to dial up, amplify it, right? Like, that's your superpower, that's your strength, and continue to show up that way consistently there.
And I want to make sure folks that are listening, and if you're just tuning in, that we're not talking about content creation solely. It's about how to really differentiate yourself in the market and leveraging the power of content creation. Diana walked us through, right, how she did that, which got her exposed to, being a LinkedIn learner instructor, which is phenomenal. And one of the things I want job seekers to really grasp is to come out of that shell and not be fearful. Have you, and let me know if this has ever happened, have you ever gotten negative feedback or responses or anything like that since you've been putting out content on LinkedIn?
Like, you mean trolls?
Mm-hmm.
I personally haven't. I haven't received like trolls per se, or like really negative comments. For me, I think for me, I have a core value of respect. And so the way I like to show and communicate, I have my tone of voice of how I like to manage that. So I haven't received necessarily like the trolls or like negative comments per se. I mean, I have people disagree, which is totally fine with that there, but not necessarily the negative piece. But one thing I want to point out, this topic around differentiation, and I think back of even my own journey, I'm really big on personal development and growth. Like, I invest in myself. Like, this is not talking about just branding or anything. Like, I invest in personal development and growth. Like, and something like I've attended, for example, like Tony Robbins, like the Unleash the Power Within training on walking on fire. And one of the messages that I still really believe is around like having that higher standard for yourself of what you want for yourself and what you want to put out in this world. Right. So as you continue to raising your standard, you continue to raise your bar, you play a bigger game, you're able to produce better quality work. And so to me, that's part of standing out, right? I remember hearing one time a quote from a coach around go that extra mile, go that extra edge, because it's not crowded there, right? Like, being willing to take that extra step, right? It's not just stand out, but it's just around, it's showcasing that quality, the higher standard of work that you have. And people will see that and feel that there.
I love that. Yeah, Jim Rohn said something similar. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. So that speaks directly to personal development. Jerry has a question for you. He said, do you have a link for your UN presentation? Absolutely. Is it viewable somewhere?
I can't share it. So sorry, unfortunately, it's not available to public.
Secret. You got to have secret clearance here, Jerry.
I'm not allowed to share, but I do have other presentations that I could share related to those topics there. If you go to my YouTube channel, I have topics around that. Yeah, unless like those are private talks, I'm not allowed to share
Yeah,
publicly there.
that requires secret clearance.
Oh, that was a whole other application process for me to even apply
Get
to be a
cleared,
consultant as
exactly.
well. A whole
Yeah.
clearance there.
So talk to us about the actual. And you started talking about the. You know what? Let's shift. I was going to dive into your LinkedIn course a little bit, but I want people to go watch it and you not give it all away. Where did you come up with marketability? Because
Mm,
obviously there was something that you said, I got to separate, I got to do this, I got to do that. So I'm going to brand myself
yeah.
and
Yeah. I'll tell maybe a bit of the origin story here, and I actually don't share this a lot. So for me, a bit of my background, I'm originally from Hong Kong, came to Canada when I was 16, all by myself. And I've always actually struggled to fit in growing up, struggling to fit in, whether it's culture barrier, language barrier. And one of the big thing that, because of this, the struggles of fitting in, I really learned the importance of, well, if I'm struggling fitting in, why don't I just learn how to stand out instead? And so that's part of the story of why I do what I do today, is because growing up, I had challenges faced with actually fitting in or being confident with myself. And having gone through also like competitive, like business schools, competitive type of jobs as well, I've really learned the importance that you have to stand out and differentiate. And so when I got into companies like working at a top consulting firm or top recruiting a role at like Google, like it really instilled in me that we weren't really taught these things growing up, right? And so I really became passionate about like how can I help more people to stand out. And so my marketability came from is around that, is that believe in yourself that you are marketable, that you are valuable, right? So I have this formula that I teach around how to stand out to get more opportunities. Is number one, you need to increase your marketability, right? The marketability piece is around your branding, your messaging, your story, your elevator pitch, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your cover letter. That's the marketability piece. And then you want to increase your credibility, right? Your credibility is really around your reputation, the fact that you do great work, that you're known for something great, or people want to refer you, right? That's around the credibility piece there. And that will come over time, right? In building your brand and reputation. The third piece then is you want to increase your visibility so that that you're top of mind, right? So the visibility is whether it's around networking,
Mhm.
creating content, talking to people, that's visibility. And the last piece is around the likability, which is really around the soft skills on improving your communication skills, relationship building skills. So that's part of the story of why I created the company around my marketability, is around like, hey, believing that, hey, you are valuable, that you are marketable. One of my favorite saying, my mantra is owning your greatness with confidence to shine and thrive. And this is all about believing that, hey, you have something great to offer. We just need to unlock it. Right? A lot of times people don't know what it is. So part of what I do as a coach is helping people identify that and then like magnify it.
Love it, love it, love it. Hey, Shannon. She says, standing out with excellence. Diana, yes, Jim Rohn, Orlando, work on ourselves. Then we can better serve everyone around us
Yes.
to the fullest. Loving this conversations. Thank you so much, Shannon. I know Shannon for a couple of years now out in California. So as again, we're wrapping up on time. You're super busy, right, folks? If you didn't see, she got talks like everywhere, every day. What's going on?
In the next
What's
2 weeks.
exactly back to back throughout up until the holidays? What's next for you? You know what? Let me take a one step back. One step back. It's around content creation or responding to comments on LinkedIn as a feature. How would you suggest someone respond to a comment or a post that's from a company, not an individual, but from a company that resonates with them? Any strategic way or tips that you can share with folks?
That's a good question. So it depends on obviously what is your goal? What is your goal of responding? Is your goal like you want to build a relationship or you want to build a credibility, right? Because that will at the angle that you want to take. If let's just say assume it's just like a company that you want to get into,
Hmm.
right? You want to acknowledge, but to showcase a bit of like, hey, that you know a little bit about them, to build that credibility or acknowledge what they're working on, that you're paying attention to, or you read a certain article insights. You can add that angle for them to pay attention there. But I would say in general, like I think about general, like responding to comments. For me, I think about the acknowledgement piece, right? There's the acknowledgement piece there, acknowledging someone what you like, and then you can add your point of view piece in terms of your stance, right? In terms of adding value. It's simple as that. It's not like long formula. Like I know there's always people here like, well, you want to have value driven comments, right? Meaning you can start a conversation as well. You can have that as well there. So a mix of both. Like I like to have a combination of like, way to go. Like I'll give people like a compliment, and then I'll add in
Hmm.
a point of view there. That's usually my stuff. I'm quickly responding to comments there.
Do you ever respond to a post or something that resonates with you, but you disagree with?
I see. Disagree with. I mean, yeah. I don't know if I would necessarily. Would respond like I would like disagree. It depends on what it is. I would just scroll past it if it's something I really don't
Hmm.
agree with. There, I don't engage because it's like what kind of energy do you really want to attract? Um, I mean, I would add, I would think of add on. Like a lot of times, sometimes I see posts where like, what else can I add on to it? Another
Hmm.
take to it. I would add on that other.
Got it. And I asked that more so for, again, the presentation I gave last night and personal, that I'm on the same track. I wanted to ask someone who really knew, and you literally just said what I said. The first thing I was like, don't respond at all. Don't engage.
Don't engage. If you
Yeah.
don't, yeah, engage with them. I want to share something quickly here, like for the audience,
Yeah.
because I received a great, I saw a great post today that really touched my heart. It was actually from someone, Stephen Inghair, who's been following me quite some time with my content journey and being on live streams. And I've been engaging with his content. He's a new content creator. So I would give also a lot of encouragement, words of encouragement as well. And little did I know, he created a carousel post dedicated to me of how I've made an impact in his life, of helping him, of extracting, identifying his brand. And I didn't know that, but what I loved about it was obviously he really appreciated the comment I made on his post that touched him so much that he created a content, not just text, but in a carousel post
Hmm.
dedicated to me there. And what I loved about it was, when I think about this, is back to building authentic relationships, right? A big part of there's the content creation of building your brand and visibility, but to me, it's about how are you building authentic relationships where you can support one another. And that's the beauty of it. And I'm going to tell you this is that the last few years as a content creator, I've met some of my closest friends or fellow entrepreneurs because of consistently not only just posting content, but supporting each other's content or whatever their wins are. And that's how you really build a strong network. And that's what I love about it is that if you can think about, hey, how can I really find like my tribe of people and be really authentic and genuine? That's how you're going to stand out. That's how you're really going to stand out there.
Yep, absolutely, 100% agree. The Career Accelerator Planner was launched because I had Karen on as a guest on my podcast. We connected and post that conversation. We worked together and put out a product. So, absolutely, 100% agree with that. So, with these final minutes left, I want to ask you, what's next? What's coming 2023 for Miss Chan? What should we be
Good
looking out for?
question. Yeah. Well, number one is I'm definitely going to be doing more speaking. So I've been doing coaching for the last 10 years. I've been doing speaking as well, but primarily I've been doing coaching like 80-90% of my time. So I want to flip that in
Hmm.
2023, where I'm doing 80% speaking and about 20 or 30% coaching. I'm also hosting my very first mastermind. I'm hosting a luxury wellness retreat and business mastermind in Cancun,
Mm,
Mexico.
wow.
And going back to relationship building, like I've been able to create something like this in just the last few days, actually, since last Thursday. And I've been able to pretty much fill up my mastermind seats in the last few days. And so I know people are craving for now more in-person experience, in-person connections, in personal growth as well because of all the lockdown. So I want to be able to create that environment and safe space where people can really, one, relax, connect, and grow. That's really part of what I want to do. Like I'm feeling my calling now, where I can really also serve people who are making that career pivot, not only in that corporate world, but those who are starting their own business.
Love it.
Yeah.
Where can folks find you? I mean, again, if you're under a metaverse rock and don't know who Diana is, come up, come out from among them. Where can folks connect
uh,
with you, consume your content, and really, learn about your expertise and everything that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is connect with me on LinkedIn at Diana YK Chan. Follow me, or you can send me a DM message to connect there. Number two is you can also connect with me on my YouTube channel. Tons of free content there of long form trainings. I'm also active on Instagram and TikTok. I'm slowly learning to create these short form fun videos there. And then lastly is come on over to my website at mymarkability.com, where you can join my mailing list, where I'll share some of my latest content tips as well.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. You mentioned kind of a daily mantra earlier. Can you share that again, unless it's something different? What's your daily mantra? Why do you get up and do what you do?
Why do I do, or my mantra, like what I tell people, or like I have this
Tell
saying, but
yourself.
own
What do
for
you
my.
tell yourself and get up to be able to produce content and want to support people and help people?
Oh, for me, very simple. Like for me, it's really making a difference in people's life. Whether it's inspiring someone, empowering someone, encouraging someone, that's really my why. Like helping people to believe that they matter, that they're worthy, that they're valuable. That's really what drives me the most there. When I think about the work I do as a coach, yes, it's great that they're getting a new job, they're making more money. Like that's the tangible stuff. But what really fills my heart is really knowing that helping people to transform in some way, that they are more confident. They believe in themselves more, that they believe that they are worthy and valuable. That's really what gets me excited of why I do what I do.
Love it. We will leave it there, folks. Dan, I appreciate your time, your expertise, this connection. We're going to
Oh, so
build
many
on this
great people
friendship.
here.
Yep,
Shannon
I
and
know.
Candace, thank you so much. And Jerry, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely, Jerry. If you get any kind of clearance and you get access to that UN presentation, shoot me a note, my friend. Shoot me a note.
I'll see if I can do some tidbits of it, perhaps.
Yeah, a little bit, little snippets.
Little
Just
snippets of it.
drip it out in the
Sneak
marketing
peek
thing.
here, right?
Exactly. Deanna, I appreciate you so much. Again, I'm a huge fan, and I can call you a friend, and I look forward to continuing the relationship.
Same
And
here.
learning from you as well. So I'm gonna close this out with a quick little video, but stay tuned. I want to talk to you just for a little bit after behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and then we'll wrap up. But thanks, folks, and we'll see you next week with some more interviews from the Career Talks podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you very much for being here, guys.